Have you ever met someone who isn't the strongest in the room, but everyone still feels a chill the moment they look at him? Not because of his muscles or status, but because his mere presence says everything. That's the kind of aura most people chase their whole life, but very few characters actually display it. And one of the examples of that aura is Garou from the anime One Punch Man. He possesses a psychological quality that goes beyond physical strength and fighting skill. It's the way he carries his pain, the way he stands alone, and the way he doesn't need anyone to validate who he is. And honestly, that's why it hurts even more that season 3 of One Punch Man looks so trash. Like, I don't know what happened, but it's definitely nowhere near season 1 or even season 2. But even with all that, Garou still stands out because his aura is so powerful that even bad production cannot dull it. And that's what made me think Garou's presence isn't just cool, it's something that you can actually learn from and apply in real life. Because the way he carries himself and builds a strong presence teaches real valuable psychological lessons hidden inside it. So in this video, we are talking about 4 unique ways to build an aura like Garou. And trust me, point number 4 is something you have probably never heard before. So let's get started. Point number 1. Stop chasing approval. When you look at Garou, the first thing you notice is that he definitely doesn't try to fit into the neat little boxes the world has for people like hero, villain or monsters. But here's the interesting part. He wasn't born like this. He developed his personality because he refused to bow down to the norms of society. Most people today lose their natural aura because they are constantly checking how the world sees them. They move through life like there's an invisible audience judging them on every step. And the more you chase approval, the more your identity becomes a mix of other people's expectations. But Garou wasn't like that. He didn't operate on approval, but rather on conviction. He didn't care if people labeled him as a villain or misunderstood his motives, and therefore he created his own identity. And that's what made him dangerous, not his punches, but his commitment to his own narrative. And you really see this when the Monster Association tries to recruit him. They assumed he would join them because the world called him the hero hunter, but Garou refused to let their labels decide who he was. He didn't see himself as a monster and therefore he didn't act like one. In fact, he ended up beating the very monsters who tried to capture him. This moment in the anime isn't just about fighting, it's also about identity. Garou had every opportunity to take the easy path, to accept the role the world has forced on him, but he didn't. He chose his own definition and not the one given to him. This moment in anime is powerful because it shows you something real about life. When you stop chasing approval, the world loses its ability to control you, and people suddenly perceive you differently when your actions are not dependent on who is watching. In neuroscience, there is something called the self-determination theory. It says that humans perform at their peak when their actions come from the internal motives and not external approval. Your brain literally releases more dopamine when you do something because you believe in it, not because someone expects you to. Think about it like this. Have you ever noticed that the more you try to impress someone, the more awkward, nervous or unsure you become? But the moment you stop caring about approval and start acting from your own true values, your presence changes. People take you more seriously, you speak differently, walk differently, and your aura becomes heavier. So the next time when you think about building an aura like Garou, don't focus on becoming strong in the traditional sense. Focus on building a mind that will not bend just because the world wants it to. Next up is embrace the monster inside. We live in a world where people are constantly taught to hide their anger, tone down their ambition, and stay within their lines so they don't make others uncomfortable. But here's the truth. You cannot build an aura like Garou if you spend your entire life suppressing what makes you intense. Because the more you suppress your raw emotions, the weaker your presence becomes. You look calm on the outside, but inside you are just scattered. Garou, on the other hand, does the opposite. He looks at his anger, his loneliness, and embraces them. He doesn't suppress them, but he doesn't let them control him blindly. Instead, he channels all of that energy into something meaningful. And therefore, when Garou walks into a scene, he feels intimidating, not because he's strong, but because he's honest. His aura is authentic and unapologetically human. There's a moment in season 3 of One Punch Man that explains this perfectly. Garou is fighting the monsters named the Royal Reaper and the Bug God. He is already injured, already exhausted, but he still stands his ground. Then Royal Reaper stabs him from behind and practically kills him. A normal person would have given up right there because the pain and the shock is too much for any human to process. But Garou isn't any human. The moment he collapses, the monster inside him awakens. Not a monster of destruction, but a monster of survival. A monster that says, I am not done. And when he subsequently infiltrates the Monster Association's headquarters later and confronts the Royal Reaper again, you can see clearly that his darkness didn't push him into mindless rage. Rather, it pushed him into clarity. He wasn't fighting solely to kill Royal Reaper. He was fighting to prove that he refuses to die before becoming who he was meant to be. Now think about real life for a second. Imagine someone who always gets walked over at work because they are too scared to speak up. They keep silent to avoid conflict. They hide their frustration to keep things smooth. But deep down, that frustration builds and builds. And one day it bursts out uncontrollably, hurting them or someone else. This happens because they never learn to use their inner fire with intention. But imagine if the same person embraced their aggression from the beginning. Imagine if they said, "I deserve respect," and used that fire to set boundaries calmly and clearly. Suddenly, the same emotion that had once destroyed their peace now protects it. So yes, your monster might be your anger, your ambition, your desire to be better than the version of yourself everyone expects. But it's not evil unless you let it control you. When you understand it and when you make it work for you instead of against you, that's when you develop an aura that people can feel. Then comes build an aura but protecting something quietly. You know, there's something about Garou that people rarely notice. Everyone sees the hero hunter, the guy who takes on an entire association, the monster who grows stronger after every fight. But beneath all that chaos, there's a side of him that's almost gentle, and that's where his real aura comes from. See, Garou isn't out there protecting the weak because he wants validation. He does it because deep down that's who he is. But the whole world misunderstands him. They see a threat, a villain, and therefore they never realize he's the one stepping between danger and innocence. And this is what creates the mystery around him. He calls himself a monster, but he acts like a hero. There's something incredibly powerful about doing the right thing quietly without shouting about it, and Garou embodies that perfectly. Think about his scenes with Taro. At first, Garou doesn't even know why he keeps helping this kid, but every time Taro is in danger, Garou moves automatically like instinct. And the crazy part, he doesn't tell anyone. He doesn't even try to explain it to himself. Therefore, people keep labeling him as a monster while he's literally saving a child behind the scenes. That's why Garou's auras feel so heavy and genuine. People can sense sincerity even when they misunderstand the person. And this is where self-improvement comes into play, because this works in real life too. Psychologists call this the quiet competence effect. When you help others or take responsibility without announcing it, people unconsciously respect you more. Not because you said something, but because your actions show consistency. Humans are wired to trust those who protect without demanding attention. It shows strength, stability, and self-control. And the funny thing is, you don't even have to do anything dramatic. It can be simple things like standing up for a friend privately, or helping someone without posting it on social media, or being the person who doesn't speak loudly about their actions but shows it through their behavior. Over time, people can't explain it, but they feel something around you. They feel safe and trusted, and that's the aura Garou naturally carries. And finally, become impossible to predict. Think about your day-to-day life for a second. You probably react the same way to the same problems. Someone disrespects you, you either explode or stay quiet. Someone disagrees with you, you defend yourself the same way every time. Your personality becomes a habit and not an option. But Garou shows us something different, and it's that aura comes from refusing to let other people's expectations shape your behavior. Think about the scene in One Punch Man when Garou is fighting multiple heroes at once. They enter the battle thinking they have cornered him, but within minutes they are confused, frustrated, and scared. Why? Because the Garou they thought they understood disappeared in seconds. He changed his fighting skill mid-battle, switched from offense to defense without warning, and adapted to every new move they threw at him. The heroes started hesitating, not because he's physically overpowering them, but because they can't predict him anymore. And hesitation often happens when the brains can't calculate a pattern. And this isn't an anime thing. Real life works the same way. According to a study by University of Cambridge on social perception, people with unpredictable behavioral patterns are immediately perceived as having higher social status. Not because they're trying to impress anyone, but because unpredictability forces others to pay attention. It interrupts their default mode. It makes them analyze you instead of judging you. That's why leaders, innovators, and even world-class athletes often seem so hard to read, because they don't react emotionally. Instead, they observe, adapt, and respond in ways that keep people focused. In your own life, this means you need to stop being emotionally transparent, not in a toxic or fake way, but in a controlled way. When people expect you to overreact, yet you stay calm, you break the pattern. When people expect you to give up, yet you evolve, you break the pattern. And just like Garou, every time you break a pattern, you grow one psychological level higher than the people trying to judge you. At the end of the day, Garou's aura isn't about being the strongest guy in the room, but rather about refusing to break or lose himself even in chaotic situations. You don't need to fight heroes to build an aura like his. You just need to work on the parts of yourself that nobody sees, like your mindset, your principles, your pain, and how you choose to rise from it. Because if there's one thing Garou teaches us, it's this: your presence becomes more powerful the moment you stop living for the world and start living from within. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.